Welcome to the Nate and Dorin podcast. We are professional videographers based in Vancouver, Canada, and we are here to talk about relevant topics within the video and media industry. I'm Nate and I run Nate Dixon Media.
And I am Dorin, the videographer, solo entrepreneur offering video production services. Today, we're going to be exploring some interesting terminology within the video industry. What do we mean, or what do people mean when they say professional, videographer, cinematographer? I thought these terms would be very clear, but in my experience, they mean different things to different people within the industry and even to people outside. So I just thought it would be an interesting topic to discuss with Nate. So I think the first one we should look at is, what does professional mean? So what do you think qualifies a person to be professional, Nate?
Well, the first thing that I think, the first qualifier would be, are you getting paid to do it? Are you professional? To me means, are you making money or getting money out of whatever you're doing? So you could have, the most expensive camera in the world. You could have been doing it for 10 years, but if you're not providing your services or goods in exchange for money, I don't think you can call yourself a professional.
Right. See, that's where this gets interesting. Like, somebody could be a hobbyist videographer and make like quality work. But I guess the distinction we need to make here is professional can mean quality, but it, like, what we're referring to, I guess, would be more professional in the sense of your profession, your career, right? So a career or a profession, you're a professional videographer. That means you do this for your job,
Mm-hmm.
and you charge for your services because it is of value, right? So I would 100% agree with that. I think that would stand out. Like, a professional videographer would be that. A hobbyist that would make professional quality videos is a different term. I would still consider
Yeah,
that person a hobbyist or a amateur, a videographer.
yeah. Even if you could say the piece looks professional, but I
Mhm.
wouldn't label yourself as a professional videographer.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
think we're in agreement with that, and it's just a slight distinction, but like sometimes it's got to be made because I've had clients that, oh well, I found this guy that can do it for $200. Like, okay, you pay, you get what you pay for.
Mm.
Like, that kid living in his mom's basement doing it on his free time can call himself a professional and full client. But I've also had clients reach out and say, oh, last year we went with a student and we want a professional. And I'm like, okay, so that delineates a clear distinction there. Um,
Mm.
and it's not like it's not just that. Like, like, let's say you're charging for services. Is that the only thing that makes you a professional, or is there something else?
Well, yeah, you might not produce professional work.
Right.
Somebody might want to be paying you for it, but it might not be good.
Yeah. And especially, it's like if it's a wedding video or whatever, you'll get one reaction. If it's a corporate client that needs that video for a marketing ad and everyone's laughing at that company now because of the bad video, you're definitely never going to be called professional by that company. So yeah, I think having experience or skill or being talented. Some people are just very talented and they don't need 5 years of experience to produce something very interesting. But that's, I think, a minority of cases. Um, I actually, now that I mentioned that, I kind of think, I don't think it's a requirement, but I think it is a stepping stone that will get you quicker to being able to call yourself a professional. is if videography is actually something you are very interested in and you have like a creative um approach, or it's your passion, it's your hobby, you have like, it's kind of like those people like, oh, I want to become a doctor because or a lawyer because I make good money. Like, yeah, but if you do the schooling and you hate it and you don't understand it, then how good of service will you be able to provide? You know what I mean?
Mm, right. Like, I think I see what you're saying.
Like motivation. Like people need to be motivated to want to make this their career. If they are not, um, I think that they might not have the same chances of offering a quality product because maybe they're not as invested in it.
Hmm.
So I guess the clear examples that come to my mind is like students that are very talented and very passionate. They can within a couple of years establish a business that's successful in a way that others do it in 10 years, right? I know there's many factors that go into that, but I'm just saying like people that are very passion and motivation driven, um, that is a stepping stone in being professional, I think.
It can definitely kickstart things,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where you're putting in the sweat equity.
Mm-hmm.
You're not relying on outside sources. You're taking the extra time yourself to do that.
And okay, here's another thought that just came to me. And companies do this to brand themselves that way. So some companies will focus their outreach to clients or customers by specifying this. Like we are so motivated. We've been doing this since this and this. We just love doing video and we just do community work for free in our community because that's how much, right? Like that's kind of I think where I was thinking of this in the back of my mind. Um, like putting in the extra effort because you're so motivated and it's such a pleasure for you can be used as a marketing tool to show your professionalism, like your
Mm,
investment in the craft that you're doing beyond just like this is my job.
right.
But again, it's
Yeah.
not an absolute requirement, but it is something that will make you get that credit from other people's perspective by presenting yourself that way.
Hmm. Definitely.
Um here okay, let me ask you this one. Let's take videography specifically. To be a professional videographer, do you think there's a difference between someone that did video school and someone that is just self-taught, like off of YouTube?
Well, I guess maybe to some clients, they might approach or have a preconceived notion of that. They might
Hmm.
prefer the film student or not. Like
Employers,
you,
100%.
yeah, that can definitely make a difference, but I think it depends on the person and the company as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, there's a wide spectrum, I'd say.
Hmm. But so you wouldn't rule out someone that didn't do official education, like has a piece of paper with a signature on it.
No, I wouldn't completely ignore it,
Mm-hmm.
but no, I wouldn't count somebody out if they didn't have that training. If they didn't go to Vancouver Film School, I wouldn't say, "Oh, I don't think you can help me with this short film after all.
Mm-hmm.
You did uh, you didn't go there." Something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, back when before freelance, looking at job postings, I remember seeing like majority of employers wanted um, to have the certification or a diploma, but some of them were very interesting. They were asking or equivalent experience, like either you did the 2 years of school or you already have 2 years of experience, or sometimes they would be interested in a demo reel, like your proof of work.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, So some wanted both of them, Oriel and a diploma, and if no diploma, yeah, different standards, different people. But I haven't really come across, like in a freelance perspective, I haven't come across like no client cares about my training. They care about like, okay, do you have good reviews? What do you have on your website? Let me see your work. That's kind of the go-to.
Hmm.
Um, and I think for kind of how we mentioned previously about being passionate or motivated about videography, I think the more you invest in it, the more, again, you can boast in front of clients. Like, if you do have an education, you can put that, mention that when you're discussing with the client, or put that on your website, on your LinkedIn. Um, Having the latest equipment it doesn't automatically make you a professional, but it is a component, right? So if you advertise that you do, 4K filming, you are you're ticking a checkbox for certain clients.
Yeah, certain clients. And then when you show up on site to film, certain clients might be more impressed the bigger your rig is because they have this
Yes.
notion that the bigger is better. And, they want it to look like a film set. And then they'll
Hmm.
feel like, oh, this is professional,
I actually
not
had that
realizing.
happen this Thursday. I went to the client, so I get my tripod out. I put my A7 III there. We're chit chatting. Oh, there goes the teleprompter. Oh, there goes the Atomos. Oh, here's the big light. And then they're like, "Oh, this is getting serious." I'm like, "Yeah, well, you hired me. You wanted professional video, so that's what I'm here to do." And yeah, the rest of that day went smooth. And yeah, so like from a freelancer perspective, um, like getting insurance, like liability insurance and equipment insurance. Some clients will demand that. Like if it's a big contract that is like your government level, for example, they're gonna like the second thing they ask you after, let's see your portfolio, they'll say, "Are you insured? Are you insured? Do you have liability? Do you have a business license? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Okay, check, check."
Hmm.
Smaller clients might not care, but you could still, you know, boast on your website. Like I've seen videographers on their websites post that, oh, we're fully licensed, we're fully insured, we're fully trained, we have the latest equipment, and we offer the best services. It's like, okay, you've made the best possible argument to convince someone that you've invested in your craft.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. You're taking away all the objections that they might bring up or
Mm-hmm.
questions they might have. Yeah.
But with gear, like having the top end gear, you could use it, but like there's this interesting phenomenon happening in the last like 5 6 years where cameras have like evolved to the point where your cell phone can do like 8K now.
Hmm.
And there's such a thing as like corporate iPhone videography, or just phone videography, and there's like little stabilizers for $50 for your phone, and a little external mic and a little light. And these guys do corporate work. And I remember seeing YouTube videos and just like, wow, this guy's getting a 5 figure um, contract filming with his iPhone.
Hmm.
So it's like because he has got the client, he's getting paid for, he has gear that he's like accessorized. I'd have to call that guy a professional, right? But he's not using a dedicated video camera. That's
Hmm.
the thing that's like, is he a professional videographer? I guess so. He's professional because he like it's so hard to define. That's why we're kind of discussing this, trying to realize like there's we want to control this term and make it ours, but the reality is different people perceive it differently. So if his client perceives him as a professional, it doesn't matter what I think.
Hmm. Yeah, he's getting the paycheck.
Yeah, I could
Yeah.
I could in turn just look at that and draw a lesson from it and be like, okay, well, with one client, he might be like, oh, you don't have a big decked out rig, you're not for us. Okay, not to worry, I'll find a client that will look at my work and say, oh, you can do that with the phone. Yeah, you're talented.
Hmm.
Um, in fact, I kind of had a flop happen once with a client. There was just a individual, was not a business owner. I just filmed like a event for them, and we were chit chatting, and I mentioned that I was using a GoPro for a wide angle. And I was saying, "Oh, I'm so glad we don't have to lug those big, heavy cameras from like 20 years ago, and everything's like compact but still like performing really well." And then she was happy with the end product. She left a review, and she mentioned that very good work, even though the camera is small or something like that, or even if the gear is small. And I did a witty reply, and I said, "Oh, thank you for appreciating my creativity for using a GoPro to complement the professional equipment I had, because I had two other cameras that were like, it's a $3,000 mirrorless and a $1,000 lens. Come on."
Huh. I thought you were gonna say, "Well, ma'am, it's not the size, it's how I use it."
This is a public review, so I did that. If if I was more established, I could do that.
Yeah.
So, would you agree with my summary of professional that it's kind of subjective, but it's kind of also broadly accepted in certain industries or certain people, like certain like corporate world will see professional a bit different and have different checkboxes compared to an individual. An
Yeah.
individual is not going to care about certain things like insurance, license, whatever.
Yeah. And like you say, there's huge shifts going on with phone cameras getting so good
Mm,
and them being able to make up for their small sensor size. It's now they've got really good denoising algorithms
mm-hmm.
and simulating shallow depth of field and
Yeah,
this kind of stuff.
I actually just got a Samsung S20 Ultra, and this thing has like three lenses on it. It's a beast, and I wanted something that does better low light photo for my behind the scenes um aspect of my business. Instead of just hiring a second op to do it, or like another videographer or student.
Hmm.
And yeah, I'm just blown away that this thing can do low light photography like so good. It's just wow. Okay,
Yeah.
that easy and that portable and that accessible. Like the only thing that's missing from phones is telephoto zoom, right? They can't have a 200 mil equivalent. Not yet.
Yeah.
Give it
You
five
give
to
it
ten
time.
years. Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be just a little attachment, whoop, a little periscope thing. Oh my. All right, so let's move on to what does videographer mean? I think broadly speaking, videographer means something to do with video, right? Like a photographer's generally with photos. A videographer has something to do with video. He doesn't like he needs to know how to operate a camera if that's how he's getting his video, but there's also other ways of producing video, like an animation, like a flash artist um,
Mhm.
can make a commercial video for someone. Is he a videographer? If the only thing he does is flash animation, he would be a flash artist. You know what I mean? So it's like, but he can also do both and market himself as a videographer. So that's where it kind of gets muddy.
Yeah. And I think for sure, calling yourself a photographer could mean many different things.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you shoot weddings or action or sports, but you're still just taking a still frame, videographer was what I think people realize when they switch over to videos. They're like, oh, there's a lot more stuff to worry about and to
Mm.
think about. A chief one being audio. You know, you're snapping photos at a wedding, you can get like a burst of 10 and pick the best one. Video, you're constantly rolling. You can't have those mishaps and just choose that perfect moment. And oh, yeah, that's one of my photos. Video, you have to be on top of it all the time, constantly monitoring things.
Mm.
Not just a still frame, you have to plan the movements and control all that. So I feel like sometimes when people haven't tried doing video themselves, they might just kind of lump them in with photographers and oh, you do the same thing just with a video camera, right? It's like, whoa, well, there's a lot more to do.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, one of the things that's very interesting is I fully understand, having worked with a few photographers for certain projects. Photography is so much easier. You need less equipment, and you get to charge like just as much, if not more, than a videographer, depending on the project. But like corporate photographers and wedding photographers charge a lot.
Mm,
Um, but my motivation, my passion is video. I'd rather do video than photo, even though photo I know is easier and I wouldn't have all this equipment. But I love video more.
mm-hmm.
And you really hit a crucial point there. Yeah, audio. Good video with bad audio is bad videographer.
Yeah.
So I think you don't need to be an audio engineer, but I think basic audio knowledge of like what is acceptable decibel levels, or monitoring levels on the camera. Um, it would be good to know stereo from mono, to not offer a video that has only a left channel audio.
Or know how to fix that in post. That's an easy enough fix,
Yeah.
but accounting for interference,
Mm-hmm.
knowing to not say, action right before a door is about to slam, phones ringing, all that kind of stuff. Like some of that can be
Mm-hmm.
fixed in post, but that comes into your skill. But the more you can control in the moment at the time of recording, the easier
Mm-hmm.
it'll be for you later. But
Positioning microphones.
yes.
Unless you are a videographer for a company that provides you an audio mixer technician. There might be instances, like I've had gigs where I didn't have to worry about audio. Like, oh, you'll
Mm,
receive it from the mixer board. Okay.
right.
So for a freelancer, I think definitely you must have audio knowledge. For an employee, you would need to have the knowledge, like you said, for post editing for sure. Unless you're just camera operator and that's it. But at that point, you're not videographer, you're camera operator.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Well, and that brings up another skill would be the video editing side of things.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, there are just video editors, and that's all they do. They take everything in, they process it, but as a videographer, chances are you're going to be cutting some of your own stuff, if not all of it. And as we both know, it's a lot easier to cut something that you shot. You know the intent, you know which takes were good, what to
Mm-hmm.
look out for,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can internalize all that and see what worked, what didn't, and then apply that to your next shoot.
Yeah, true. I have been in the position where I've had to edit someone else's footage, and yeah, so much easier when it's your own footage.
Hmm.
Or even if it wasn't your footage, if you were present there and aware of what happened, right? Um, like let's say I'm doing teleprompter, and someone else is operating the cameras, but I get the video edit. It's a good thing I know the subject matter and I was there.
Hmm.
But yeah, so videographer, we're gonna branch this out because I think videographer is a very broad thing, and there's many aspects of video. But I think we should talk about a couple of things. The first one, I think, this this very tossed around cinematic term. What does cinematic mean, Nathan?
Yeah, ask 10 people and you might get 10 different responses.
Mm-hmm.
That's a hard one.
Like
Yeah.
cinematic to its core means cinema, like movie, like Hollywood, right? Because that's the motion picture is how it originally started. So, like one element I found to be common. I have a train in the background. I apologize for that. Uh, is the fact that frame rate is considered cinematic. I think we kind of briefly talked about this last time with our video production standards. So
Mm,
24 FPS, besides all the advantages it also has that cinematic look because it doesn't look like fluid, normal motion that you would see with your eyes. We associate it with the cinematic look that started in the 1920s. So do you
yeah,
consider 24 FPS a not all encompassing of the word cinematic, but a component?
sure. That's a component. Aspect ratio can be a component.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, you've got like your IMAX aspect ratio or your more narrow, um, or black bars on the top and bottom. You slap that on any video, and
Mm-hmm.
somebody just watching is gonna be like, "Oh, this looks cinematic."
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that funny?
It is. But like, yeah, I'm curious. How did that start? But anyway, I'll look that up after the
We gotta
podcast.
we gotta have a film expert come on here who actually shot on film, and they can probably tell us why.
Hmm. Um, cinematic. I think cinematic focuses a lot on story. Like if I think Hollywood and movie, like everything's centered around story. Like how the camera is positioned, how the acting happens, how close the camera is to capture emotion, lighting. Lighting is specifically is everything's very on purpose with
Mm,
Hollywood at least. Same with audio, like everything is for the purpose of telling a story or to convey an emotion or a message to the viewer. Um, yeah, so that's cinematic. I guess it could be synonymous with storytelling. So a
mm.
videographer might be a storyteller or he might not be. If he is, would he be called a cinematographer? That's kind of what I've seen most people use that term to mean. Like cinematographer in Hollywood means something, but they have like over 100 roles and everyone's like very precise in what it does. But a freelancer that calls himself a cinematographer does a bunch more stuff. But the core aspect would be storytelling. So like if I just
Mm,
video someone talking and doing a presentation, I'm not telling a story, I'm just capturing a moment. But if I film a wedding and then I create a highlight video and I use parts of their vows woven throughout the story to create a memorable and warm, fuzzy feeling for that couple, right? When they watch that video, uh, then you can either call yourself a wedding videographer, but if you want it to be more specific and fancy with what you offer, you would say you're a cinematographer.
mm.
Have you heard of people kind of marketing themselves as that? Like, oh, I'm a wedding cinematographer. And you're like, what does that mean? Like, I just do wedding videos.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that people just describe themselves as that. And yeah, if they can demonstrate that ability
Mm
and use some of their work, and even if they weren't the ones operating the camera, but they're the ones like planning the shots and shooting or getting these things shot to convey that specific mood and getting it edited together in a certain way.
hmm. Mm
I'm like, oh yeah, I can see how this really stands out.
hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Because that's more the movie industry or the film industry approach. Everyone has a specific role, like a cinematographer from Hollywood's point of view is also called a director of photography. And they're like deciding camera and lenses and equipment and angles, and someone else is operating that equipment.
Mhm.
But the confusing thing for me was in freelance, someone says they're a cinematographer, they're not looking to just like hire videographers and tell them what to do. They're offering storytelling through their videography. So that was like confusing for me at first because I'm like, what do I call myself? I didn't know. I thought like, ooh, if I call myself a cinematographer, I'm gonna set a very high standard that I'm not able to deliver.
Mm. Right, you're not like formally trained as one.
Yeah, no, but does it mean just movies? Does it mean like if I like I said like if I do a wedding video for someone and it gets the emotion of the day, that and I film it cinematically like 24 FPS includes slow motion. I think slow motion is another technique of a tool of telling a story. Slowing down a moment or like focusing in on a moment. Like using those elements now after 4 years of freelance, I think would qualify as a cinematographer.
Mhm.
So other cinematographers might disagree. Other videographers might cheer me on. Same with professional. It's like there's no clear like definition. I
Yeah.
guess someone promoting themselves as cinematographer is they're doing one of two things. Either they're trying to stand out and they might have that quality or not, or they truly like only do storytelling projects and they boast about it, right? That's what they like want to impress their clients with. They're like, "Oh, I've only done cinematography. I'm always taking a decision on how to tell a story and that's what makes me stand out." And I can totally respect that. But I feel like I should be able to borrow that term if I do something similar, but not at the same level as you. At that point, I think our work on our portfolio will convince a client who's the more experienced one.
Yeah, or what they're looking for. Because,
Mm-hmm.
like you say, different people have different ideas of cinematic,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what's another hat that a videographer wears to you?
Well, video. Like there's people that are looking specifically for motion graphic artists. That would be the specific title, but a videographer can do that too. So I have clients
Mm,
that ask me to animate their logo or to animate kind of like 2D figures to interact with a chart or something, or even just animating stats on a chart. At that point, you get into motion graphics territory. Um, that you know, do you market yourself as a motion graphic artist? You could if you want to get just that, but if you're a videographer, that's just another skill under your, on the belt, or like you said, another hat that you wear. So it's like videographer could mean that you know how to do a lot of stuff or very basic stuff. And I just wish there was more defined terms. But again, it all just comes down to you boasting about like, hey, I'm a video producer, you could say. That's kind of what I'm seeing as a more advanced videographer that does a bit of all of these things. Like, oh, you want me to do storytelling? You want me to do live streaming? You want me to do this and this? I'm a video production company. So that's why, kind of like in our intro, I introduce myself now as a solo entrepreneur, but I'm offering video production. I actually was terrified of saying video production on my website for my first year because I
mm,
had like when I first started out, I just had one camera. I'm like, I can't even do a two-angle interview. I'm not doing video production. I don't know what video production means. And then I look it up and it's like, oh, doing a variety of things. Like, no, that's not me. Back then. Now, yeah, I do video production. I don't do everything under the sun, but I do enough above basic videographer knowledge that I can use that title.
hmm.
So I do motion graphics, for example.
Yeah, we did that together when we were both working at that nonprofit. I remember you showing
Mm-hmm.
me I made this cool 3D hallway with particle effects and stuff, and I was like, "Oh, yeah."
Oh, yeah, that was cool. Yeah, Video Copilot teaching me how to do that. Yeah. Um, and you've probably seen like what's a cool video technique that you've seen people kind of specialize in? Like I gave
Mm.
you one example, like motion graphic artists. Like some people will do only motion graphics. Some companies want whiteboard animation. They don't even need to be filmed. Everything's like fictional or drawn. You know.
Yeah, like a whiteboard explainer, like the draw my life
Yeah.
trend style.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's those. Well, you could specialize as just doing drone video, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's an option.
Mm-hmm. So you're a drone videographer at that point.
Yeah. Aerial videographer,
Oh yeah.
aerial cinematographer.
Yeah. There you go. You can just spin them around and dazzle your client with how good you are. One thing that stands out to me is stop motion animators. Like they use
Okay.
video and photo, and they create a video from that, and they tell a story using stop motion. Have you ever done stop motion?
Yeah, I've fooled around with like doing Lego stop motion
Oh, that's
back in the
cool.
day. Yeah,
Uh,
there was a good app for it back in like
uh-huh.
the early iPhone days, and I definitely used that a few times.
I had one client last year ask me to do stop motion for them, and it was my first time ever. And I was confident in my abilities to do it, so I said, "Yeah, I can do it." Um,
Hmm.
so he didn't look specifically for someone that can do stop motion as their expertise, but it was a simple enough. It was just a product video, and the product just needed to spin around a little bit, so it wasn't like animating, bipedal humanoid figures. That would probably be really hard to
Sorry, I don't
do.
do bipedal humanoids. I only do rectangular trapezoids.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how the conversation went. Yeah, he's like very good human, and it turned out great. It didn't turn out perfect from my, from my highest critic being myself. My keen
Mm,
eye, like, the light wasn't consistent there because sometimes someone would stand in front of the light and those couple of frames are darker, but you know what? Fixed it in post.
mm,
um, yeah, yeah. Drone. Some people might do only sports. Like, oh,
yeah.
I specialize in recruitment videos, and that's the only thing I do. Or weddings, wedding videographer.
Oh, yeah. That's of course probably one of the biggest ones.
Mhm. A lot of beginners go there because they think it's easy money. Oh man, the headache and the stress.
Yeah, it can be pretty high pressure, you know. One
Mhm.
chance. If you don't nail it,
Yeah.
you can be in deep trouble.
Or there's a videographer that I know, part of the Professional Videographer Association I'm in, that like they do live streaming as their main thing,
Mm,
live productions. So they don't want to do. They specifically said they don't want to do anything creative, like create an intro or do a highlight video or stuff like that. Like they'll subcontract someone else to do it.
mm,
But he's a videographer and he has a niche they're specializing in. So they can use that. I'm a live event producer, but they're also labeled as a videographer because they can do film a wedding and just get someone else to edit it.
yeah, they can swing a camera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. So there's many nuances and specializations. Probably there's some that I've not even heard of. Like actually one recently that I saw on Facebook, this guy was advertising himself as a hyperlapse specialist.
Ah, okay.
And he was just showing hyperlapse videos of everything he's everywhere
Hmm.
he's been. And like I was confused what the difference between time lapse and hyperlapse is, but I think hyperlapse focuses on keeping something central as the camera's moving around it, like a building. I think that's the gist of it. I haven't looked it up, but based on just that one video I saw, I'm like, hyperlapse is a sped up, like gimbal motion around a building.
Yeah, or I think it's basically a time lapse, but time lapse typically the camera is stationary and other things are moving that you might not normally see moving, like the stars panning across the sky
Yeah.
or the sun setting. The hyperlapse um, adds the movement to the camera as well as the subject, or
Oh.
maybe like you said, the subject stationary. So revolving around the Eiffel Tower while focusing on it. That's not just a time lapse. You're changing the perspective of the camera at the same time.
Oh, okay. I see.
I think that's what distinguishes just a time lapse versus a hyperlapse.
So would a GoPro on my dashboard be considered a hyperlapse of me driving, not just parked still?
That's a good question because, like, the camera's stationary in your car, but your car's moving. That's
But
a good question.
I think the problem is if you see the hood or the window or anything that's still and part of the car, that kind of breaks that
Mm,
mm, perspective, like you said.
yeah, then it's like, oh, okay, it is fixed.
Hmm.
Yeah, and maybe some time lapses would like do just a slow zoom in or zoom out, but that's just like digitally zooming after the
Yeah.
fact, right? There's no
Mm-hmm.
parallax to anything. There's no movement.
Hmm. Yeah. So that's something I could look into and see. Hey, how easy enough is it to do it? Do I have the equipment to do it? Do I have the passion and the interest to master this or to pick it up and improve on it? And maybe this is something I can, add to the portfolio. So,
Another feather in your cap.
mm,
Yeah.
aye, aye. Yeah. Um, yeah, hyperlapse. Interesting. Um, and like one thing that kind of stood out to me is director of photography. So some people are not going with cinematographer; they're going with director of photography. And again, I was confused because from a like Wikipedia like film industry definition, it's synonymous with cinematographer. They're the same person, a director of photography, but a film director is different. They have the overall vision, but the director of photography deals with the equipment and like choosing the equipment and the angles and all that stuff. But some people, as a freelancer, want to distinguish themselves by saying they're director of photography, and that again, like, do I call myself that? Do I not? What's the difference? Like, what does director of photography mean to you if you heard a freelancer say that?
Well, it's like, how do you separate that out? If a director of photography is like choosing, let's say, the light sources and the lens and the camera, it's like, how can you not do that when you're filming as a videographer, like a freelancer? You're not
Um,
saying like, Dorin, can you just go over there and grab that stuff out of my bag? Whatever you think is gonna work. It's like, and
yeah,
then blindly operating the camera. It's yeah, it's kind of all blurred together when you're doing freelance video.
yeah. See, because that's the thing I have. Like on the one hand, I feel like videographer is like putting me in a bad light, like and not showing off all the things that I can do. But if I
Mm,
use just one of these specific terms, that's not showing off what I do on the other ones either. Like if I say I'm a cinematographer, that person won't know that, oh, I also do live streaming. Oh, I also
right.
do motion graphics. I can animate text for you. I don't just like film weddings. Some people might
Hmm.
associate cinematographer with that or doing films, indie films. Like,
Yeah.
no, I do like cinematography. I thought was also telling the story of corporate, like a highlight video. Okay, I don't know. So that's why I'm like, I'm okay saying I'm a videographer. Like I said, I found the more encompassing term to be video production, offering video production services seems
Mm,
to get the message across that I do a lot of stuff.
yeah.
But I have had experience in actually remember at that workplace we had. we had a director at one point
Oh, for
designated for
that
a
docu.
documentary. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think I remember that. They were the main actor at one point as well,
yeah. So they
weren't
were
they? So
specialized
they were
in.
talent and the director.
Yeah, because what set them apart was they were very knowledgeable on the storytelling, like the content aspect of it, not so much the video, which is why we ran the cameras. um, but then also in the freelance world, I've had two occasions where I had to deal with it. I was under a director, and once I talked with the director when I was under a director. Actually, twice I was under a director. Yeah, the first time, yeah, they completely trusted me with everything. Like they didn't double check my gear or lighting or whatever, but they did want to see the image that I had set up, the framing and the lighting before we hit
Mm.
record. And then they're like, "Oh, let's just add a flower in the background and to make it look the background look more interesting." And then they just solely focused on the content delivery and they were helping the person deliver the content. So I didn't have to worry about that, which was great. So that was a very positive experience working side by side with the director. But the project after that, the director was out of the country, so because of travel bans, I had to give them a live stream video feed directly from my camera's point of view so they could see exactly what my camera's capturing, and they were directing me through like the laptop. And they were like directing everything. Like, oh, move the camera back. No, a bit more forward now, a bit to the left. A bit lower the height. Put the light here. Move the table here. Move the background here. Move the like. Okay, okay. Yeah, it's their vision. It's their baby. Okay, fine. I didn't edit that, and I wasn't involved in anything except filming. So that was that experience. But what kind of soured that experience was the talent was reading teleprompter and they messed up a few words because their brain completed, like, read into the sentence and completed a different word than what was on the teleprompter. And I was operating the teleprompter as well as the camera, and then I caught it. So I just asked him, like, "Hey, can you redo that line? You said this, but the teleprompter says this." And the director snapped at me. He's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's okay. It's okay. I got this. I'm in charge here. Don't worry about that. Just focus on the teleprompt. I'm like, yeah, that's what I was doing. And
uh,
yeah, they did that a couple of times to the point where I'm like, okay, you know, it's your problem. You can't blame me for like, because the awkward thing was like I didn't want to get blamed for like why didn't you pay attention to this, right?
mm,
Like we didn't
yeah.
have a pre-discussion of like, okay, you're only doing this and I'm doing it this. It was just like, okay, cool. I'm gonna be assisting and I'll be guiding. Like, no, you're not guiding. You're like, shut up. So that was not the best experience. And then I talked with a indie film director, and I was kind of like telling him about my experiences, and he's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. You don't question the director. I'm like, even if he makes a mistake or doesn't notice a mistake, yeah, you don't question it. I'm like, I'm gonna have a hard time being under a director if we don't have like a common interest in delivering quality content. Like more eyes and more brains on noticing details. Like there's a higher chance of catching something, right? Like, but the bottom line, I think that he told me was like, no, that's what a director is doing. He specializes in directing. It's his vision, and it's his job to catch everything. So you're just the camera guy. If he tells you, show him that, and if he likes it, he likes it, and that's his vision. And I'm like, wow, that kind of made me conclude that if I ever come up with a story, I'm gonna be the director for it.
Yeah. So you can choose whether you want to be the more collaborative with the DP, the director of photography who you trust, or if it's just some hired person,
Mm-hmm.
you can say, yes, there's my stamp of approval. Don't tell
Mm-hmm.
me anything. Yeah, just
I guess that's in freelance what makes it two different roles, whereas in cinema, it's in film, it's the same role. cinematographer and director of photography. In the freelance world, cinematographer is a one-man band and probably doesn't have to direct too many people, or just like second camera up here, take the camera and get these shots. Whereas my experience, at least with directors, they they direct people, and that's what's distinguishing them. Like, hey, I'm gonna tell you that I'm taking care of these responsibilities, and you're only doing this, even though you normally do this by yourself. But now you're under me.
Wow, that's
Microphone.
intimidating.
Yeah.
Yeah, and part of being a videographer too is helping direct the talent, because sometimes these aren't actors you're working with. This is
Mm-hmm.
just somebody at a company trying to explain their product, and you
Mm-hmm.
might need to help make them feel comfortable and help them feel at ease in front of the camera. And maybe
Oh yeah.
it's intimidating with all the lights, so you
Yeah.
kind of have to become the director there to help get the performance that the company's looking for and that you want to show up on the camera,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know?
100%. And I actually have met videographers that do not want to put that effort in either. Like they're like, I'm just a videographer. You're hiring me just to film, and they
Mm,
don't care about the helping the person deliver their thing properly. It's not their problem. Uh, and I don't do business with those people. And I also don't like. I think that's like setting yourself up and your client to fail, and you lose a good relationship, a business relationship there. But on the other hand, I do understand that it's extra effort than just operating a camera. You have to take lighting into account, you have to take a microphone into account, multiple camera angles, telling people how to get comfortable and helping them deliver their lines. I've even had people like that I've like I noticed them struggling with a script that they made themselves and they're not script writers. And I've had to help them like, hey, this is repetitive. You can say this in a shorter, more straight to the point form like this. Oh wow, thanks. Um, so that's why like for if unless I'm just operating one camera, that's my camera operator or videographer rate. Anything past one camera, um, or using a teleprompter or something like that, or dealing with people delivering their lines, or working on a script, at that point I'm like director of photography.
mm,
Um, and the few times that I've had to hire out actors and book a venue to film at, and like all of those extra things are technically what a producer does, like taking care of logistics and venues and that kind of stuff. So like, okay, if I'm gonna spend this much time emailing and auditioning and like, yeah, that's what a producer does. So I'm gonna elevate my rate to that. If you don't want to take time to do it, right? That's the
yep.
compromise. Like you're paying someone else to take care of the stuff. So at first, the first time I was asked to do it, I didn't realize how much work is involved in getting an actor.
Mm,
And then I just didn't charge for it because I didn't know about it. I thought like, oh, I just find an actor and that's that. Like, no, you have to ask them to send in their tapes or their previous work. You have to send it over to the client. The client has to say, oh, yeah, that person fits what we're looking for. And then you reach out to the actor and are you available? No. Okay, let's continue down the list. And sometimes not enough actors respond because the pay is not that good because your client doesn't have a budget. And you tell them, yeah, I'm going to get an actor for you.
yeah.
So lots of learning lessons. But
Mm.
yeah, what would you say you're advertising yourself as right now, Nate? Is it videographer? Is it DOP? Cinematographer? What would you say?
I think I've mainly marketed as video production,
Oh,
like
mm-hmm,
like Nate Dixon Media's Vancouver video production.
mm-hmm,
That's kind of the taglines.
awesome.
And because, like you say, there's so much stuff under the umbrella of videographer that we do in different capacities. Like, no, I wouldn't call myself a director, but I definitely help direct the talent to get the best performance, to make them feel more comfortable, and say, "Oh, can we redo that? That didn't fit the vision that you wanted me to capture."
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, I do directing. Would I call myself a director? No. And I think video production is just the most all-encompassing term
Mm-hmm.
that I would say.
So maybe you would have a section in your website that says the services that you offer, and that might be part of it, like storytelling, directing, graphics, motion graphics. Um, Maybe there it would be a good place to put it so that people do know what you do. But you wouldn't like your main title would be video production to encompass all of that. Because yeah, if you would go with just director of photography, some clients might not reach out because they assume like, oh, you do the directing side of things. You don't do the this side of it. It's like, no, I do that, but
I do that.
I do that.
Yeah.
It's late at night and I'm tired, so my tongue is not keeping up with my lips. uh, yeah, yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like I said, I market myself now doing video production, so um,
The video producer instead of Dorin the videographer. Is that a sneak peek into your new branding?
I'll have to think about that. Dorin the video producer. Yeah, that would be taking it to the next level. I just branded my car like 3 months ago with Dorin the videographer, so um, yeah, I'll see. I did put like my logo's Dorin the videographer, but the side of my car says professional video production.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
So you do have video production on there. It's
yeah,
just not.
but just my logo says Dorin the videographer.
Yeah, great logo, by the way.
Dude, have we talked about my logo? I think we have. What was it like? Episode 1? By the way, Nate, this is episode 10. Congratulations.
Ooh, we made it a decade of. No, that's not how that works.
Ah.
Yeah, so for all you people listening since episode 1, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you for
Leave a
tolerating.
comment and we'll give you a special award.
Yeah, special gifts for our first 10 subscribers.
Yeah.
Nate will make a logo for you.
No.
Yeah, I was actually talking to Victor today,
Ah, yes, Victor of
and he
episode 5.
watches our podcast, Nate. So say hello to
Yeah,
Victor.
Victor, if you're listening, you you had that fake depth of field effect on your camera the whole time, and it bugged me.
Well, I kind of like went in on him like, okay, why are you watching our podcast? I was like, oh come on, you're watching it. And he's like, okay, I skipped through it. I'm like, yeah, that's right. You don't watch it. Yeah. I didn't actually realize that was a filter effect from Google Meet. I thought I was actually trying to figure out. I'm like, how does this guy have a shallow depth of field from a webcam when I can't do that?
For me, it's only on Google Chrome. On Firefox, it won't show up.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Um. Yeah. Yeah. I haven't tried Google Meets on Firefox. But you're right. You can open Gmail there too. I've forgotten. All right. So let's wrap this up with the Romanian word of the week, Nate.
All right.
This is not video related, but it is podcast related.
Okay.
And it is felicitări. And that's one word. And it sounds really
Felicitări.
felicitări.
How do you say that last bit? Felici.
Felicitări.
I can't say that last name.
Tări. I know, because you can't roll your R's.
No.
So like you would
Felici.
say turf, but without the F, turf. Turf. And put an E at the end. Turf. 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 How do you say turf?
Turf.
Exactly. There's the rolling R. So use that with an E.
Feliciter.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
Okay. Feliciter. That's close enough.
Yeah. Now guess what it means.
Uh, podcast related? Sounds like kind of like felicitations. Feliz Navidad.
Ooh. Yeah, it means congratulations. Congrats
Oh,
on
okay.
10 podcasts. Felicitar.
Ah, okay. So, related to our podcast
Yeah,
specifically.
specifically,
Gotcha.
yes. Yeah, so there you go. You have a Romanian acquaintance that says, "Oh, dude, I just this thing in my life." You can be like Felici Turf, and
Feliz.
all
Nice.
right, so we can sleep well knowing we're video production videographers specialists. Well done,
Yeah.
Nate. All right. Well, hopefully that cleared up or confused people. So let us know in the comments or send us a message on if we completely botched it or we nailed it or we just did nothing and we wasted an hour of your time. Thank you very much for watching and listening.
And be sure to subscribe to not miss an episode of Wasting Your Time listening to the Dorin podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to waste your time. This has been Nate and Doran. Thanks for watching and listening.